We're going to begin our coverage in Kyiv with CNN's Frederick Pike. And Fred, I do understand there have been air raid sirens going off there. You've been hearing quite a bit. And there is new information about Russian attacks on civilian areas.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, John. We did have the air raid siren going off until just a couple of seconds ago. That's obviously something, as you know, that's not necessarily uncommon here, especially as the battle is unfolding. It doesn't necessarily mean there's going to be airstrikes, but it certainly means that the Ukrainians are seeing things in the air which they believe could be dangerous to their forces and dangerous to the city as well. We also just heard was a pretty intense firefight, and I was really interested to see that video that you guys just played of that firefight, the very intense one that took place on the outskirts of Kyiv yesterday, because the shooting that we were hearing just now seemed to be coming from the same location once again towards the northeast of the capital. Now that shelling on civilian areas that you guys were just alluding to, that happened towards the northwest of the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv, where apparently a shopping mall was hit, and then some residential buildings and a high-rise building was also hit there as well. The Ukrainians saying that so far 4 people are confirmed to have been wounded in that. It's obviously unclear whether or not that toll could rise because, of course, right now the responders are on the scene there. In total, we can see that it's been a really intense 24 hours. There's been a lot of shelling going on, especially towards the northeastern part of Kyiv, where apparently the Ukrainians are trying to make headway. You obviously had that great interview just an hour ago with the advisor to President Zelensky. That's some of the first information that we've gotten of the Ukrainians saying that they're actually making headway, them saying that. We've since been able to get some information from the mayor of a district called Irpin, which is also in the northwest of Kyiv, and he says that now, it was held by Russian forces, and he's saying now 80% of that district is back in Ukrainian hands. He says there's still 4,000 civilians that are there, but he also said that that district as well is getting shelled by Russian forces, so still very much a frontline place, even as the Ukrainians are saying they've made some headway in key areas as they're trying to drive the Russians back away from the Ukrainian capital, John.
Yeah, this official who's in President Zelensky's orbit says, we can confirm progress. Obviously, they're very wary, Fred, not to count their chickens before they hatch, in other words, because they know the Russians are going to fight fiercely to retake the towns once the Ukrainians get there. But it does show that the Ukrainian efforts, to an extent, in some places are working.
Yeah, it's certainly, we believe that it certainly does. And there's one other indication that was pretty obvious as well yesterday when the Ukrainians announced that they'd retaken the town of Makariv. And they posted some video that we were able to geolocate that it was actually really in that town. So it seems as though that is confirmed. That's a strategic location. That's about 35 miles west of the Ukrainian capital, and also on that axis from which the Russians would be trying to surround the Ukrainian capital. So that's a big deal for the Ukrainians to have been able to take that town back. And of course, from there, they could then also pressure those Russian forces that are towards the northeast of Ukraine's capital in Kyiv and try to further push them back as well. We know from the U.S. that the Russians apparently are having big problems with logistics, getting things as simple as food and water to their troops, but then of course also resupplying them in other ways as well. As you know, tanks and artillery require a lot of maintenance pretty much around the clock. Apparently the Russians having big problems with that. And so the Ukrainians say that they're on the move there, but of course, as you've noted, very wary to give out any detailed information, not just because they're afraid those gains could be reversed, but of course also not to tip the Russian forces off as to what they're exactly trying to do.
Understandable. Frederick Pike in Kyiv. Thanks so much, Fred.